Shall we get started with the absolute destruction of this POS? No wonder. I mean, this guy is related to Sank Uyghur. Hasan Piker. Is that his real last name, Piker? Isn't that a word for somebody who always places small bets? Caleb said that some women find him attractive. Well, I mean, the Hunchback of Notre Dame probably had kids, and I would imagine his daughters would probably find this attractive. Lockwood says Hunchback of Notre Dame was fictional, and so are the women who like this guy. And there you are on the other side of a two-sided joke, my friend.
My friend believes in the Great Replacement.
Okay, so he's reading what he has on the screen there. My friend believes in the Great Replacement without realizing, how do I convince him out of it? Well, that's some fabulous English.
That is an unfortunate reality for many people. The best thing to ask people when they believe in the Great Replacement is why they believe people are being replaced and
why they believe people are being replaced. This is a typical anti-white tactic. Your lived reality, your lived experience is an illusion. It's all fake. How has everybody else responded to that sort of argument from anti-whites? Well, they start talking about data. Well, they start talking about just their double standards, and they think the point being made is the double standard. No, that's not what you do. You point out their tactic and tell them how anti-white it is. They are denying reality because they're anti-white.
Who they're being replaced with and what that replacement looks like. And they'll often...
Who are they being replaced with? And what does that replacement look like? This guy is so fucking dumb that his IQ score was lower than a box of rocks. So we can't even say that this guy is as dumb as... That's how fucking dumb he is. And malicious.
And say white people are being replaced. That's the entire point of this, right?
Okay. So now he's acting like it's this like cumbersome thing, getting up to the point. Oh, so they say so white people are being replaced. That's the point of this entire thing. Yes, motherfucker, yes. That's the problem. We're being white erased. That's our problem. That's what we're upset about.
There is no such thing as white people.
Okay, this is what my God, I heard this in the car. And I was lit, baby. Lit. No such thing as white people. Well, then there's no such thing as Turkish people, motherfucker. You understand that? There's no such thing as whatever you are. You ain't white. That I can probably. He tries to say he's white here, and he says because I have pale skin, which of course is an attempt to slander us. It's an attempt at an epithet. It's an attempt to demean white people. You got pale skin, buddy. We got beautiful skin. We are wrapped in the best looking skin. That's why your ass is all up in our people's business, buddy, because of how hot we are. That's why you're trying to get a white women. And that's why non-white women trying to get a white guys, because of how hot we are. So no more of this bullshit. No more pretending like white people are somehow this delicate group and their skin is just so you would give anything in your world to get in bed with one of us. I'm just going to tell it like it is. This absolute POS. There ain't no white people. There ain't no Turkish people. Is that where you're from, buddy? Is that where your people's ethnicity is from? Not a one of them are real.
I'm white. My skin is white. There's the paleness of your skin that...
Absolutely not. Western kind is distinguished, in my opinion, from the other races of man by our instincts. That is the cause. The other things like our skin, our phenotype, our variation there, our different hair colors, different eye colors, none of these things directly correlate. They can indirectly to the manifestation of Western civilization, which is the aggregate of individuals expressing their instinct onto their environment. And that in that aggregate we call culture. This is why wherever white people go, we make Western civilization, Western culture. You can see different hues, but it's still markedly different from non-white people and the cultures that they create, which are no less wonderful or no more wonderful, just different. Those are the differences, not our color of our skin, not the color of our hair, not our eyes, although all of that are outward, all of those things are outward markers for sure. And to deny them is to be such a profound lying POS and revelatory of deep hatred for Western kind, deep jealousy and envy for Western kind.
Makes you white, which is like what we see and what we think of.
Okay, look. So he even grabs so what we see and what we think of. Yeah, that's exactly right. Those are white people. That's exactly right. That is what we see and think of because those are white people, dumbass.
When we think of white people, but the real white people.
Okay, he's going to tell us now. Thank God. What is the real white? It's not what he just said. I mean, he just defeated his own argument. I didn't even need. I could drop the mic right now if it wasn't so expensive, and my ass too poor to get a new one. My white ass too poor to get a new one. But he started off by defeating his own thesis. That's how dumb he is. How does he have nearly 1 million subscribers?
Concept is a political one that was deliberately crafted to justify racial subjugation to black people. It comes.
Oh, that's what it was. As though we didn't know we were a race before coming into contact with black people. I'm going to go out on a limb. Maybe put it out there to historians because this seems like a really hard one. But apparently, white people didn't know that they were a people until they came across black people.
It started all the way back with the one drop rule in an effort to make sure that there was a differentiating.
Okay, he's going to tell us how whiteness got started. So he's now stating that white people started whiteness. Bullshit.
Factor between the people that were being subjugated, between the people that were forced into slavery, because if you recognize that the people that you were enslaving were real human beings, then all of a sudden that gets into tricky moral territory.
What the? Are you serious? He just suggested that we had to come up with an idea and then put it on paper to understand that there was a difference between white people and black people. I'm pretty sure that we knew there was a difference between us and black people. There are some differences upon visual inspection. There are quite a few differences. So, no, we did not have to write it down. We didn't have to come up with some sort of idea that we are whiteness and therefore different from black people.
For a lot of people who are going to say, that's not a good look, Sweaty. You're kind of
sweaty, more like smelly, this guy right here. Honestly, with all that hair, I mean, this guy's got, this guy's covered in hair. I mean, let's be real, right? Look at all the hair on this guy. I guarantee you that if he ever loses the hair on his head, he'll be able to do a comb over with his back hair. No problem. I mean, just comb that shit right on over. That's how thick it is. And really thick hair makes a lot of odor. A lot of oils, sebum, sweat gets trapped in there. And I'm willing to bet that he suffers from ablutophobia. So he's not really getting as clean as he could, I'm imagining. So he stinks. This guy smells, I'm telling you, this guy smells so bad and looks so ugly that his dentist thought he had him upside down. That's how ugly and smelly this guy is. He really should return the horse's ass that he's using for a face.
All the way back with the one drop rule in an effort to make sure that there was a differentiating factor between the people that were being.
So that's exactly what I thought he said. He's saying that white people came up with the concept of white people to differentiate. Oh, you know what? I want to note here for a moment to poke holes in this guy's ill logic, which is easy. It's Swiss cheese like his brain. That at this moment, he's saying white people came up with whiteness to differentiate themselves. I mean, like, that is stupid. So here he's saying, at this moment in his argument, that white people created the concept of white people, of whiteness, which we did not create, of the concept of whiteness. It belongs to anti-whites and anti-whitism. It's a slur. Created it to differentiate us from black people, because as we know, the only people that ever enslaved any people on planet Earth are white people. Certainly not Turks. They never enslaved anybody. No sex slavery, nothing like that. White people, the enslavers, and the only slaves on planet Earth that ever existed were black people. And so white people somehow could not tell the difference between white people and black people. So, according to Hasan, we needed to create this concept of white people, which he claims that this concept also is called whiteness that we created. Once we had that written out, then we said, I've got a piece of paper now. Now I can see the difference between me, and the black people. Finally, up until this moment, till I had this, I had no idea. I had no idea who was white or who was black. We just couldn't figure it out. Who was white? Who was black? Hasan, you're a genius. You are a genius. Thank you for doing the research, man. Thank you for doing the hard-nosed research and digging in to discover that we came up with this concept to differentiate. One drop, that's what he's talking about. Let's go.
Being subjugated between the people that were forced into slavery, because if you recognize that the people that you were enslaving were real human beings, then all of a sudden that gets into tricky moral territory.
Okay, it doesn't get into tricky moral territory, you absolute knob. You are a Muppet. You are a Muppet, and Sank's hand is up your ass, moving your mouth. That's what's happening right now. Sank knows that he's lost all his, he's Uyghured himself into no credibility whatsoever. And so now his hand is up your ass, working your mouth. Do you know why it's not tricky moral territory? Because the entire planet practiced slavery until the white race ended it. Until the white race gave up hordes of fortune sailing the seas to put an end to the slave trade. Maybe that didn't happen, though. Ask CNN, because I'm sure that's all going to be rewritten, folks, about who paid for that, who sailed the seas. Was it really the British? Was it really the French? Was it really the Americans? Were they? No. It came from like these other locations. Who knows what they'll be named in the future? But it came from elsewhere. In other words, it was moral to practice slavery on planet Earth for all of human history, with, I don't know if there were any exceptions that are notable that were more than just blinks in the eye of time of our history. But slavery was the norm. Every race practiced slavery. In other words, they enslaved people of their own race, other peoples, foreign peoples. They enslaved as many people as they could. Everyone did it. And then white race said, this is immoral. We shouldn't do this anymore. These people's lives, they're just spent in this servitude, and we should put an end to it. We had philosophers talking about it for many, many, many years before finally white people said, you know what? We like to pledge ourselves to objectives beyond ourselves. It's kind of a norm, kind of goes back to Greece for us. And so we then took the next logical step. White people are far from perfect. No one's perfect on planet Earth. No race of people are perfect. And white people, just like everybody else. But no one ever talks about white people moving toward these better states. Nobody ever talks about that. And white people took a giant leap forward when they said slavery is wrong. And as a people, irrespective of just our individual ethnicities and countries, we are going to put an end to it, not just in our countries and among our ethnicities, but all over planet Earth. So it's not tricky moral territory. Apparently, for this guy with his children's toys in the background, he doesn't quite understand that throughout the rest of human existence, we weren't operating under an oppressive anti-white ideology that was eroding and destroying Western kind and Western civilization, condemning the white race alone for slavery and not celebrating the white race for putting a moral and into it, an ethical moral argument for an into it, or arguments, and then with their blood, soil, and treasure putting an end to it. No thanks there. Certainly not going to come from Hasan.
For a lot of people who are going to say, that's not a good look, Sweaty. You're kind of enslaving human beings.
Oh, it's not a good look. Not a good look, Sweaty. This guy right now has so much sweat running down his hairy ass crack. It's like the Mississippi. That I can promise you.
That's where whiteness comes from. And I'm not talking about what.
Oh, that's where it comes from. As he tells 200 plus thousand who've watched it in one day.
Whiteness, like I'm white,
no,
pale.
You're not white. And if there was some sort of a situation where he was white, we would take an immediate vote and kick his ass out. We would give him away to anybody. He's no longer white. He's kicked out. But he wasn't white to begin with. Race is far deeper than skin.
Pale skin. Talking about whiteness as a dominant political faction. When people talk about white, there's two different kinds of white. What I'm specifically talking about is whiteness as a political tool, as a political concept.
So here goes. This is the out that they use. And this is why you don't use the anti-white slur and concept whiteness, because they can talk out of both sides of their mouth. Very smart people have come up with these tools to destroy you. So this enables just gremlins like this thing here to go to you and talk about biological white erasure. And then at any moment, he can just step on an off-ramp and say, oh, no, I'm not talking about physical people. I'm talking about this concept of power. This is why you don't follow them down their rabbit trail on their anti-white concepts. But he's a troll, though. It's true. Honest slip up there. But you don't follow him down that path, because they then flip around. Where are white people without whiteness? Well, if you're white and you are extraordinarily anti-white, I mean, you really want to white erase Western civilization. You want to destroy it. You want to victimize white children, beautiful little white children. You want to victimize them? Well, then maybe that is an example of white people without whiteness. So then what is the eradication of whiteness? It's the eradication of Western kind.
Blackness. Whiteness is only defined by capturing power and being the dominant in-group.
Okay, so let me ask you something. Let's go back for a second. Capturing power. Whiteness is about capturing power. He just said a moment ago that whiteness was about differentiating ourselves from black people because we had no other way to recognize the differences. I wonder how much power did white people have to capture in our own civilization? How much did we have to capture in the civilization that we built, in the countries that we build, in the churches that we built, in the government centers that we built, in the halls of power that we built with our blood, with our toil? Why did we need to create a concept to capture power in our own civilization? Because you are a lying mother. You know that? White people didn't have to capture power in our own societies.
There is nothing really identifiable about white culture in particular.
Oh, really?
Like memes like lol, eating mayo, putting raisins in potato salad, that sort of shit. Not being able to dance. Those are
yeah. I tell you what, buddy, let's have a dance off. I will burn you into the ground I will burn you absolutely into the ground. Your mother will be asking people for my phone number. And your girlfriend tells me to say hello. Let's go ahead and have a dance off. White culture. This guy just said that white people don't have any culture. White people have the most varied culture, certainly in a place like the United States, because we had so many of our different hues of Western civilization, ethnicities come together. Culture begins in the most rudimentary. I mean, to say you have no culture is to say you have no instinct to project onto the world. Culture is the way that we, men and women, deal with each other. It's the way that we believe adults should treat children. It's the way that we believe is a norm for interaction with animals, interaction with the environment. There are myriad dances created by seemingly uncountable dances, styles of music created by white people, architecture everywhere, music, high music and popular music everywhere. Don't ever get into a conversation. I'm doing this just for this burn down of this POS. When an anti-white says that white people have no culture, you just point out that that is an evil anti-white thing to say, that they would never say it about Jews. They would never say it about Turks. They would never say it about Japanese. They would never say it about El Salvadorians. They would never say it about anybody. But the reality is that there is more variety of these cultural signals and all the way down. And I'm talking about just like the things like the food, the dress, the music, it's the artwork, etc. The science. Anybody want to thank Aristotle and Bacon? I mean, who were they again? I think they weren't. Let me think. I don't think they weren't Turkish, right? I don't think so. But it's all the way down. Culture is your instinct. It's what we refer to. It emanates from what we refer to as the biospirit. Every race of people has a different one. We believe in opinion. It's an opinion. If you want facts, you go to CNN. You come here, you get an opinion. And I'm wont to change it if it works when the ear is at the door. So it is your actual projection of who and what you are onto the environment. For anti-whites to say, and I'm going to tell you something, folks. Listen to this closely. Anti-whites, the really bright ones who do the most damage, they know what we teach here in Go Free. They know that instinct is what's really different among the races of man. And they know then that if you deny a people an instinct and therefore an identity, they don't exist. And if you can convince them that they don't exist in their minds, in their imaginations, then they're not long for this world. It won't be long before physically they no longer exist. So when he is saying that there's no such thing as white culture except bad dancing and mayonnaise and this sort of thing, crappy memes or whatever he said, when he's saying that, he is expressing his bloodlust desire for biological white erasure. He would never say that about Turks or Asians or anybody else because of the implications for the people. Rest assured.
There is no such thing as like, I'm a white person and whiteness needs to be protected, because you're not a white person. You're Irish. You're not a white person. You're Polish.
Wrong. Those are ethnicities within the white race. I have a feeling, I didn't hear this next part, but I have a little bit of a hunch about, because this is the anti-whites, they walk down the same roads with their arguments. The white race has many different ethnicities. Guess what the black race also has? If you go to Africa, there's not just one black people, right? But is it possible that black people in Africa could, over time, as white people in Europe did, over time, come to the conclusion that, hey, we're all black. But over here, we talk, on this side of the invisible line, we talk one way. We maybe eat a little bit of a different foods and things like this than you do on that side. Of course they could. If you were to ask Hasan whether or not that could happen in Africa, he would say, of course, yeah. Of course it would happen, because for him, everything's possible with the other races. They're all good. Only white people can't do anything.
There is a concept such as white Hispanics in this country. Even Hispanic people, once again, for a very long time would not have been considered to be white, are now considered white.
Okay, why? Why? He's making contradictory arguments. Are you catching this? He's saying that the evil white race expands the definition of white and at the same time narrows the definition of white with no reason for it.
So the reason why I'm mentioning that is because that concept is expanded, but usually under fascist leadership, because of the way fascism operates, because of the way white supremacy operates,
well, just because of the way it well, you have to make the argument. You have to say how it operates. You always have to point this out to these people. Don't allow them to have these hidden premises.
Concept shrinks. Okay, so if you think,
so just for some reason, when white people are in charge of our own destiny, I mean, are you hearing this? Are you getting the full drift of how evil anti-whiteism is? If white people, and according to him, white people in charge of our destiny is fascism. That's what he's saying right there. There's no other way that looks. If that's their conclusion, that there's no other way that looks, and that means Nazism, what he's saying is white people can never be in charge of their destiny.
I think you're in the comfort right now of living in the imperial.
Okay, so he's now speaking to, well, unless you're the palest of pale white people, well, then they're going to just, what are they going to do? Gas you? Is that what it's going to be?
Or being considered white, think again.
Oh, think again.
That will shrink. That's why the Aryan concept that Hitler was advancing was getting smaller.
It always goes, this is the anti-whites. You whites in charge of themselves, that's Nazism. What does society teach about Nazism? Greatest evil in the history of the world. What is moral relative in that environment relative to Nazism? The destruction of Nazism. If Nazism is what white people are when they control their destiny, then you can see the moral thing to do is to oppose it. The uber, to throw the German word back in his face, thing to do, the uber moral thing to do is to victimize Western kind. That is the moral structure of anti-whiteism.
That's just how fascism works. That's just how fascism always has operated. There's never going to be an endpoint.
So it's just, that is natural for white people. It's innate. That's what he just said. Anti-white bastard.
Endpoint is just going to be more and more insular with like a smaller and smaller group of people.
This fucker is so, I guarantee you, I can almost smell him coming through my monitor. He stinks so bad that he throws female skunks into heat. Sunday, going free, 5 p.m. Make sure you're there. Roll out.